presented by Barefoot Wines. I am Dan Hanzus. I have heroes here. Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler. It is the Week 11 preview episode. Here we are. And can I say that it's very nice when you see a talented broadcaster like Paul Allen of Vikings Radio go national, go mainstream, as viral. He has this week, viral, as the kids say. But it's almost for me like fans of Nirvana in 1990 in Seattle that had the Bleach record, and then all of a sudden Nevermind comes out, and is all of a sudden Nirvana is not yours anymore, it's everyone's. It's a little on my radar that it took until now for people to be like, oh, the guy that calls the Vikings game is amazing, when we've been talking about that for years on this program. Give it to us.
It's a tough dynamic. I think for you especially, you champion these play-by-play announcers across the United States.
Give it to us.
I hear you. It's slightly possessive, but that's what
Give it to us.
Yeah, I think you want
a little Mark Wahlberg in fear.
A little bit.
Paul. I also think Paul Allen's work he's done over the last 20 years, incredible. He had that call when Josh McCown knocked him out of the playoffs back in 2003, which is a famous call. And I would say his work has been much better than Bleach. Ultimately, like, you listen to Bleach, it's a couple good songs, like Calm Down about Nirvana
apples and oranges.
I'm just saying Allen's been at that top call. There it was.
Your take is shaky there. It's like Bleach was a debut record from a revolutionary band. It wasn't a masterpiece. It was the start of something. Didn't have to be brilliant, but
totally. I'm just saying Paul Allen's been like
brilliant.
He's been writing Nevermind on a weekly basis.
Can I tell you one?
Are you kidding me? The Vikings are gonna win.
When I was in college, like 4,000 years ago, like Dave Matthews, who I'm not touting as Nirvana or Paul Allen, was playing essentially just at UVA across the country, and my friend was sending me mixtapes. And I'd play them in my dorm, and, like, all these people would stop by and be like, this guy sounds gross. Then, like, 4 weeks later, everyone's blasting him out of the window of their dorm room.
They were right, though. Dave Matthews does kind of sound gross in retrospect.
They just couldn't stand him, and then 4 weeks later, they all loved him. That's all. It's to your thing where it's like suddenly I was like, well, it's not mine anymore. It was my secret mission to like him.
And that was our weekly segment that I wonder if they'll take out of the TV show.
Well, I'm sure that's not going to make the television show.
So here we are. Let's move on. Week 11 is upon us. We will start, as we always do, with the primetime games. It's time for Sunday Night Football pregame, presented by Barefoot Wine. And that takes us across the sidewalk to SoFi Stadium, where the Los Angeles Chargers will meet the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I do remember the last time the Chiefs were in SoFi Stadium. I was there. It was the first football game that I took my sons to with my wife, and
humble brag,
a
maybe?
great
that you took your wife also. It's nice that you did. I mean,
why would it be a humble brag?
I don't know. It's a lot of.
Because she's a woman, she shouldn't go to the football game. Also,
yikes.
I mean,
yikes.
Why would
toxic much?
Why would that come to your mind as a reason that anyone would ask the question?
It says more about you.
I don't know. I don't know why we're talking about this, but I was happy to take my entire family.
That's nice of you.
And it was a great game. And the Chargers should have won that game. And they were an exciting, dynamic offense. Now we fast forward a year. That was December. Now we're in November, and I don't feel that way about this game. I remember being excited to watch those two teams play at SoFi Stadium. This year, I feel like the Chargers are not as good as their record indicates, which is not even that great a record. I think the Chiefs are in the conversation, certainly as the best team in football, and I don't see any way that the Chiefs go to SoFi and lose. I just don't see it.
Is he going to do it?
You know what? I am.
Oh my
if you give me this is what I have. They are in the zone. If you give me in the lock zone Patrick Mahomes in prime time against the Chargers team that's all beat up, I'm locking it up.
Ooh. Well, it's a totally solid lock.
I mean, I know it almost feels – I don't like to generally lock 6-point favorites, but if it's in the zone, I'm going to take it in this case because I'm not a fan of this Chargers team. And I have to say Sunday night, Greg – the last time we saw the Chargers, it was when, and I know Keenan Allen might be back in this game. It was the first time I'm like, I love Justin Herbert, but he's not making this. He's not saving this team. There's just too much wrong with it.
So they were my first instinct to lock up as well. When I checked early in the week, they were actually above the lock zone at 7.5. It's gone down 2 whole points.
Because of Keenan?
I think because of multiple factors. One, just people thinking that's a good value. That's probably the number one value.
Yeah.
And I would tend to agree. It's a division game. It's at home. They always play the Chiefs very tough. If you remember the Week 2 game in Kansas City, I know it's a long time ago, but that was a game you kind of felt like the Chargers outplayed the Chiefs for most of it, and the Chiefs ended up sneaking away with that win with a couple big plays. It's also the game that changed Herbert's season because he got hurt.
Yeah.
And hasn't been the same, I don't think, until the bye. I think he's played better the last couple of weeks. That's part of the reason now I'm leaning against locking it up. I'm in the Mark space where I actually don't know what I'm going to do. But the reason is maybe injury situations that, yes, they could get Keenan Allen back. That one I'm not sure about.
Still
is he really going to be the same?
One good leg.
Mike Williams seems like he will be back, and he had a great game against the Chiefs, and that's huge. And then you look at the Chiefs receivers, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling's out of practice with an illness. It sounds like he'll be available, but Juju Smith-Schuster, I have my doubts. He hasn't been at practice, and Mecole Hardman. So that's 2 of their key receivers, although you're kind of replacing Hardman with Kadarius Toney.
I just look at you're the Chargers, and I know that all these teams are so banged up at this point, but you don't have Joey Bosa. Their defensive line was so compromised by the end of that Niners game last Sunday night that San Francisco was running at will at them, moving the ball, and situation's not a whole lot better. I look at the wins that the Chargers have. And as they were unfurling these wins, it was harder to know who these other teams were. But it's against the Raiders, who are a flaming mess, the Texans, the Browns, the Broncos, and the Falcons. They don't have a signature win. I don't feel a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to do much to Patrick Mahomes, who is maybe the one quarterback in the league right now who is consistently on fire week to week. I mean, he's dominating.
I trust him more than any other quarterback in the league right now.
I don't even know who I'd pick number 2 because of where we are with Josh Allen these last couple weeks.
People trying to throw Tua right in the top of that MVP
Tua's been totally
conversation.
consistent, but I think that's because there's a vacuum of there's a lack of other quarterbacks.
QB index. Give me the top 3 right now.
I have Mahomes at 1, easily. I still have Allen at 2 because I feel like he's slumpy.
I sign off
he's
on
going to be slumpy. That's the way it is. And from there, I go Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
I mean, I just.
Where's Tua at, by the way?
Tua's 5.
Okay, well, we'll get to Tua next
but I think Tua. It's not a knock on Tua. It's just that Justin Herbert's the guy that kept hanging up there in the top 5 or 6, and it's like I can't do it anymore.
Right. Mahomes, the way he's controlling the game, and I mentioned it on Sunday. Romo had a good, view on it, and especially in terms of his eyes. Almost every play, he's moving the opponent, and I just feel like he's in a place that he wasn't in 2 years ago. That Justin Herbert is not in yet, and he's obviously got better coaching around him than Justin Herbert in terms of creating big plays. But I also think it's Mahomes' mind that's really taken the next step after taking a punch in his career, a metaphorical punch last year in terms of defenses, kind of making a good move against him. I think he's now kind of outsmarting defenses again, and he's using his legs more than ever. He's going to set a career high in yards if he keeps it up on the ground, and it just feels like, how do you stop it?
It's like he somehow added an element to his game.
Yeah, and I think these players, these quarterbacks, it's such a game hack to be able to bail out your offense with your legs, and he's always had the ability. It just seems like he has such great instincts with his legs. 2 things. Brandon Staley said yesterday that you mentioned Joey Bosa not playing. He's not even close. So you're seeing
Weeks
another
away.
Bosa injury being ruined, Bosa's season being ruined by injury, and you mentioned, yes, the Chiefs are a little beat up, but the Kadarius Toney acquisition, it's coming in big now. You feel it as a potential seismic addition because the players seem to love him. Obviously, the coaching staff found a way to get him involved. Last week, Travis Kelce said he cannot believe the Giants let him out of their building.
It's like the Chiefs of all teams pulled off this trade for a guy that the Giants had in their doghouse.
Smart teams
forever.
do smart things.
I know. I mean, Mahomes has not lost in November, December since 2019.
Whoa.
I know. I feel good about this lock.
You keep supporting why I was thinking of locking. Maybe.
But I'm already locking. You don't like to do that.
I think either way.
But if I did it with you, it would guarantee a win.
I'm going to be stuck.
Always welcome.
Can the Chiefs run on the Chargers too? If they can, then it's really over. Everyone runs on the Chargers. And the Chargers have so many injuries that at this point we barely even mention them, but they lost 2 defensive tackles for the season last week.
Right. They only had 3 healthy defensive tackles on the roster.
I believe is how you pronounce it. And then Christian Covington, who was basically brought in as a replacement for their other injuries. So they lose 2 more guys on their defensive interior. They're terrible up front. And I think the Chiefs' offensive line is really good. The reason I'm hesitant to do it, though, Dan, is I do think the Chiefs' defense is maybe vulnerable,
right.
and Herbert, I think, is playing better if it hasn't showed up. That's all.
You're right. I think the Chargers, they could win.
I don't think they're going to, but I could see Herbert having his best game of this in a long time with Mike Williams and making it interesting. These 2 teams have played each other very close. Herbert's 3-4 against the Andy Reid Mahomes team, including the loss earlier this year. They've always played these close games.
How about this? Because, of course, I want to get my lock.
Yeah.
But I'm loyal to football. Not as loyal to football as Greggy. He didn't do it. He didn't do it on Sunday Night Football. We're giving him a bit
I'm
of a
loyal to
pass.
football.
Justin, if you're going to do back-to-back, not you, Justin. Justin Herbert, if you're going to give me, if we're getting back-to-back Herbert primetime games, give me a big one.
You gotta
give me a big one.
You gotta show up.
Show everybody what a stud you are, and lift your team to a higher place. Maybe it happens. We get a fun shootout like last December, or the Chiefs keep kicking butt. We shall see.
Around the NFL is brought to you by Verizon, the network America relies on.
Let's move to Monday Night Football. The San Francisco 49ers. It's just like the same teams playing in primetime every single week. Is that where we're at?
I mean, it is different because it's in Mexico City.
The Chargers game was flexed into primetime to get the Steelers off our screen, so I'm not complaining.
All right, that's fair. 49ers 5-4. The Cardinals 4-6 from Estadio Azteca. And hola to all our listeners in Mexico and surrounding territories. Here we go. Kyler Murray in this game, we don't know. We don't know. Again, the hamstring, I think there's a lot of speculation that he's going to take another week here, although it's not written in stone at this point. And also, Mark, there was a local columnist who was speaking on the idea of, leave Colt in there. In fact, just leave him in period. The offense is better with him. I didn't read it. I'm assuming that's what it was about. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, I think one thing about Colt McCoy last week against the Rams, the Cardinals' offense to me seemed more organized. It just seemed their characterization week after week was like mind-numbing gaffes. And I'm not putting that all on Kyler Murray. I think they've just been a disorganized offense in general. But Colt McCoy, I mean, if you watch Hard Knocks, and Greg and I have been tracking it to some degree, it was notable to me.
Did you guys launch the pod yet?
We actually are just having private conversations on the phone that we record and then replay for our own.
What's the point of talking if it's not into a microphone and people can't hear it?
Well, ever?
Yeah.
I mean, Greg and I have
you know what we do?
We've evolved beyond that necessity, I guess.
So you guys are now having private phone calls.
Then we replay it to each other. We replay it for our own.
You guys don't have private phone.
But I will tell you something happened on that show, and you do learn little things. Like Colt McCoy, number one, the way he just walks around, so comfortable in his own skin, going up to certain players in practice, asking how they prefer. Where do you want the ball to show up?
How can I do this for you?
Little details. And, like, there was a section on that show where during the game, a bunch of, like, wide receivers and skill position players were like, Colt McCoy's experienced. He knows what he's doing out here. We love playing with him. It's
those were the defensive players. And they were like, that's why he's been in the league so long. That ball is out. He knows where he's going.
There is something notable to me about that situation. I kind of think that Cliff Kingsbury hit a bit of a comfort zone last week with Colt McCoy just being in there. So I'm not saying you go columnist and say don't start Kyler Murray, but you're the guy that is anti-Cardinals and thought they've been a total mess. Last week, they were not.
I can't get on this train either. He has one good game against a bad Rams team.
Well, he beat the Niners last year.
And it's like, oh, maybe Kyler Murray shouldn't rush back. I mean...
all I'm saying is what I said is that I think he's a good leader. That's all. I'm not saying he should replace
there is something there that with his experience and the way he helps run the practice with Cliff, he knows Cliff's offense so well by now that there is a veteran sort of attention to detail that Kyler Murray as a younger player maybe doesn't have. And Kyler Murray relies on his athleticism more, of course. That said, I don't think their offense did anything last week that Kyler Murray couldn't have done. They didn't have 300 yards of offense. It looked a lot to me like the Kyler Murray offense for the most part, 5-6 yards per attempt. Colt McCoy gives a level of comfort that you feel like Steve Keim has and Cliff Kingsbury. I think there is something there.
You know I'm just a Colt McCoy fan, too.
Right.
That's where I'm coming from.
But he also helps make up for an offensive line. We haven't given them a lot of leeway here that they're missing 4 starting offensive linemen. So are the Rams, and we're like, oh, their season's over. I guess there's no way they can try. They're missing 4 offensive linemen. But the Cardinals have been doing the same thing the last 3 weeks, and they should be given some credit for overcoming that. I think that ends this week, though.
You do? Okay. So
they're going to get crushed by the 49ers defense. Like, that's a nice story against the Rams, and then the 49ers are going to,
Here's a stat that I think
make them a piñata.
My interest level is so disconnected from your guys' interest level in the Arizona Cardinals that I struggle sometimes.
But then Dan, for the sake of the viewer, the listener, and the show, we need to prop up the Cardinals.
Some bad teams are compelling.
Yes. So we can't just go where you have no interest, so we just skip the game.
Well, I'm just saying, I feel like you're trying to sell me on the Cardinals. I'm not buying.
Monday night Mexico games are always crazy. We haven't had one in 3 or 4 years, which I forgot. 2019.
Here's a stat that I think kills Arizona. Because this is San Francisco's strength. No team in the league allows more yards after the catch than the Cardinals. Oh. And what did the Niners do better than anyone in Shanahan's offense?
Bros.
The Yak Bros. So, I don't like that for Arizona.
I bet this is a Deebo game and a Kittle game. Whenever those two guys are totally silent, like they were the week before, then they get them involved. I think the run game is coming each week. I think Jimmy's playing well. I think Fred Warner, who I don't think had his best start to the season or best year last year, has been making plays week after week. You could see him blitzing. Like, I like this 49ers team a lot, and I think it's a mismatch.
I do too. I mean, I've had them hovering around the top 5 of the power rankings for weeks, and I think, I thought it was interesting the way their offense was used last week. Some of it gave me the vibe that Kyle Shanahan and, of course, Jimmy G are trying to figure out, all right, now that we have everybody on the field, how do we put this together? So you had an interesting thing like Elijah Mitchell in his first game back out touching Christian McCaffrey on the ground. I found that interesting. I wonder what kind of share do we have in the running game between these two players, because obviously Shanahan likes Mitchell a lot. Deebo had just 2 catches on 6 looks last week. I think, to your point, they'll probably make a concerted effort to get him involved. George Kittle, who, as great as Kittle is, it's just interesting how he just comes and goes in this offense at times.
He's not the same guy. He's still really valuable, but he's not mini Gronk that he was early in the career.
He was targeted just twice last week. So Brandon Ayuk got his. There's just a lot of mouths to feed. And
isn't it kind of a great
trust
problem,
Jimmy G? It's great. It's rich people problems.
I also think it isn't the worst thing to have a game where if you're in control, Christian McCaffrey doesn't need to have 35 touches.
No, I think
you're resting these guys.
I think it'll be closer to 50-50 than his fantasy owners want the rest of the way, because it keeps them both fresh. They're thinking about going and winning a Super Bowl. I read a stat that they can measure this on secondary markets. More than 80% of the tickets are being sold to 49ers fans. So on paper, I think this is a Cardinals home game, but it's going to be a 49ers home game.
All right, we are back, and it is time to begin the Week 11 draft around the NFL. And this week, Greg's been doing a lot of belly aching about whenever it's his first pick. There's never a good game to take. Let's see, Mark, what he says right now.
No, I think there was 2 good games to take. I was very torn on it. I decided if Jets-Patriots had the right announcer crew, I'm just going to take them from Dan. I don't care about this. I always let Dan have it because it actually is a really compelling game, but I'm not going to do it. I'm taking Tony Romo on the Cowboys-Vikings to start out. When I saw that they were the crew on that game, I was like, okay, I'm taking that game. Cowboys-Vikings is not a referendum on these 2 teams, but I think it's the best matchup between 2 quality teams that I'm curious about at this point of the season. They actually asked Mike McCarthy this week in a press conference setting if he puts anything to the fact that the defense hasn't played as well when Dak is at quarterback. I mean, what kind of question is this?
That is a bizarre question.
But this is like what happens. Like, people are like, well, they're averaging 15 more points per game given up when Dak's at quarterback. It's like, yeah, that's why you shouldn't have given Cooper Rush all the credit. There's a lot that goes into football games. Their opponents have been much tougher. But as someone who believes in the Cowboys as a potential Super Bowl team, I'm a little on my heels here that the Cowboys, especially their run defense, have not been as impressive the last couple of weeks against Chicago and against Green Bay. And so I want to see how they respond against Dalvin Cook. They certainly haven't been just shutting people down. People have adjusted, I think, getting the ball out quickly against their pass defense as well. And I think Minnesota's slightly getting better each and every week. I know we saw them as a middle-of-the-pack team that was like getting lucky, but you can get better. And I think they are getting better. And I think that's a great matchup to watch and another litmus test for the Vikings. I know they just beat the Bills, but for the Vikings offense in a controlled setting against this Cowboys team, I'm really excited to see it. And I got to admit, I'm excited to see how Tony Romo calls it.
All right.
I learned things from him.
That's good. And we just had Marc Sanchez on the show learning more about the craft in the booth. This is a really great stretch for Minnesota because obviously they have this dramatic, exciting win in Buffalo. Now, as we said, we have Dallas this week. We get New England next week at home. Then we get the Jets the week after that, also at home. And, you know, those are all games that there's no gimmies there. So it's going to be interesting to see what version.
Thanksgiving night, they got the Patriots. Big
Yummy.
spot.
Yummy. So I'm looking forward. I'm the same way. I mean, anybody that had hesitations about the Vikings, and that included me, came out of that Buffalo game being like, man, that was impressive. But do they have it in them to sustain this and really be a team that by the end of the regular season is like, oh yeah, they might take the number 1 seed, they might get a bye. That would be interesting. But this is a nice test. I'm looking forward to it.
Haven't they reversed, for me at least, and I feel like you're sort of saying the same thing, the way that I felt about the Vikings for the entire run of this show? I mean, teams that are winning miracle games and having incredible times on the plane ride home become dangerous. I know that our friend Patrick Claybon doesn't believe in momentum, X, Y, and Z. I think there's something psychological about winning a game like that in Buffalo that was so highly improbable. It was a litmus test, and they passed. And I don't see any reason they couldn't do it against Dallas. I would be concerned, though. Christian Darrisaw, their star left tackle, who's PFF's number 1 left tackle, is in concussion protocol, did not practice early this week. We'll have to see what happens there. I mean, that's the kind of thing where you look at Dallas's defense and the way that they can disrupt Kirk Cousins, whose numbers fall off a cliff under pressure. And I think Cousins is having an enjoyable season. There's not taking anything away from what he's done, especially in the fourth quarter when he's been so clutch. But how many times has the incredible talent of Justin Jefferson saved Cousins on a couple of his throws? I mean,
last week was a perfect example.
Exactly.
He did not play great in that game until the end, and then he did in the fourth when it mattered.
And you
but he
mentioned
didn't play that well before in that game.
You mentioned that Justin Jefferson on Sunday's show had 9 receptions with a sub 50% completion probability. And that's not just, part of that is just his talent, but that's more than anyone in the next-gen stats era in a single game.
How about step up Trayvon Diggs? I've been looking forward to watching this matchup. I think Diggs has played better this year. I think he's better this year, even though he's not getting the interceptions. I think he's taken a step to one of the best cornerbacks in the league, which last year was maybe just about the big plays. But I think the Cowboys lost in part last week because they got cute and they played like man coverage the entire game. They played it more at one point in the game. I remember Next Gen Stats had said than any team had for years. Like they were just daring the Packers to beat them one-on-one, and it kind of happened. But I think Diggs and Jefferson, not that you're not going to have a safety there to help, but that's a great matchup.
Yeah, and the thing about the defense and the stupid question about the way it's played with Dak back is, you got to look at the schedule as well. And,
right, that's it.
There's a lot of factors, but one is the schedule. So they've got, since Dak came back, he came back against Detroit, and they played well in that game. Chicago, Justin Fields is exploding right now.
Right.
And then you get the Packers in a, desperation with Aaron Rodgers on the field, and they made plays. So I'm not freaking out about that. I think it's more about the peaks and valleys of the season. There are not many 85 Bears defenses or 2,000 Ravens defense. You're going to have these moments where, you come down a little bit. The idea now is to come back up by the end of the season. So I'm not concerned about the defense at all in this game. Man, it's a tough game to pick. I'll
just say this: we're nobody's underdog.
No, you're not.
I saw this and knew
Except
right away.
for this game, they are
I'm
1.5
picking the
points.
Cowboys. I mean, I think they're a better team. I think CeeDee Lamb is a grown man who's really showing like he's such a strong receiver. I think Tony Pollard has shown what he is as a primary back.
Is he a grown man too?
He's a grown man. I'm just saying.
I mean,
CeeDee Lamb is
all these
tough.
players are legally adults.
But you don't think of CeeDee Lamb as like for his toughness, and he's tough. And Pollard, 246 yards over the last 2 weeks. I just think they're a better team, and I think they're going to be hungrier coming off that loss and get that win.
I'm telling you what's going to happen right now.
Okay. Is he?
Minnesota wins its second straight game in overtime.
Is he?
Is he going to do it?
No, I'm just telling you.
But you're telling us definitively.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I feel definitive about another game.
Okay. Go ahead, Justin.
I have a prediction of how this game's going to go. Actually, I'm going to let Paul Allen say my prediction for how this game's going to go.
Yes, the Vikings team! The Vikings are going to win!
I'm locking up the Vikings.
Now,
I love that.
Now, the irony of that sound drop is Paul Allen, he spoke too soon.
Premature.
They ended up giving up the game-tying field goal, and that game went to overtime.
Well, he was ultimately correct.
Yeah, he
nailed was the prediction. Correct in the end. My confidence in the Cowboys was shaken by the way that game played out, both sides of the ball. And are they at the end of the day, is this kind of the same old Cowboys team? But then on the flip side, it's like the Vikings. This is not how it works. They are 7-0 in one-score games, and you could say that everything's flipped and the Vikings are a different team now, or you could say that no team is more in line for some regression to hit than the Vikings. At the end of the day, I'll go with the home team in a great game. I will go, 34-31 Vikings over the Cowboys. NFL Plus is the league's new exclusive video streaming subscription service. NFL Plus has your game day covered with live, local, and primetime regular season and postseason games right on your phone or tablet. NFL Plus is available in the NFL app and at NFL.com. Subscription plans start at just $4.99 per month. Fans can visit plus.nfl.com and sign up for a free trial of NFL Plus today. Marky.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to understand why I'm picking what I'm picking.
Talk us through it.
Okay, because one thing I've learned, if you're new to the show, when we pick these games, these are the games that we watch on Sunday and have to deal with for 3.5 hours. There's only 3 late games.
Deal with.
Well, you deal with
such a
all 8 of them.
No.
So I
but
feel like you focus less on your games, maybe.
You may think that. That's not accurate.
You question the strategy of your game watching on Sunday.
Here's the thing.
It's neither here nor there.
There's only 2 more late games. I'm taking Cincinnati at Pittsburgh because by the time it comes back around to me, if I'm stuck watching the Denver Broncos versus the Raiders for 3.5 hours, you're taking energy out of my Sunday. But I also like this game because the last time we saw these two teams, Cincinnati,
Pittsburgh and Cincinnati is the number 2 overall pick?
Yeah.
I think the logic.
I explained why, and I literally don't care what your response is.
The logic was sound.
How about that?
There's not many great games, and we can't take Dan's precious Jets away from him.
Like that.
By the way,
actually, part of it
get
is
off
part
that
of it
corner.
is,
I don't care. You could take that game. I'm watching it anyway. So go ahead, take it.
While I'm loyal to football, I'm also loyal to the show. I want the best show possible.
That's what I want, and I don't want to take the Jets from you.
Greg, you're Mr. I don't like watching the Patriots on the game day because I
can't
focus.
I wanted to. I'd say that not every week. It's like, oh boy, especially this Patriots team.
Go ahead.
Please. I want to see like the Mixon 5 touchdowns and he had 211 scrimmage yards. That was like the Bengals from last year. Can they sustain that against the Steelers with T.J. Watt? I'm not saying that's going to be every week. Can you run the ball that well, though? The Steelers had 270 yards rushing after being one of the most unwatchable ground attacks all year. So I don't buy that's going to happen either. But I do want to see what happens with this. The Bengals are 0-3 in the AFC North. This is absolutely a time for them to awaken, or I'm going to start to shut off on them. I'm going to lock up the Cincinnati Bengals because I believe in Pittsburgh there's no way after what happened in Week 1, Joe Burrow needed 5 interceptions for the Steelers to take that thing into overtime. There is no way this Bengals team, if they believe in themselves the way that they should, crumble again against the Steelers. You cannot go 0-2 against Pittsburgh and try to convince me that you're an item in the AFC.
Well, yeah, I think getting the win in the standings feels more important than convincing you that they're an item.
Not in my world.
– I'm going to lock it up, too. I'm with you.
All right.
I can see I can see it going wrong, actually. It's a road game in the division, and they always play.
When you guys lock up together, it always works out well.
Yeah,
well, one of us is bound to change before Sunday. That's what's happening.
Yeah, that's true. I know. I've been torn between them and the Chargers, but
this is
or the
good.
Chiefs rather.
This is good.
I don't know if I see them as like a fixed team. I think they're gonna have their ups and downs. But
Cincy?
Cincy.
Yeah, I mean,
but Pittsburgh is who I'm picking in this game. I'm picking against them. Nothing that happened last week made me feel any different. I think T.J. Watt being back is good. I think Najee Harris did have a little bit of juice to him last week that he didn't have previously.
But now he's dealing with knee pain.
That's a positive. I didn't know that, and that's good information to tell our listeners.
Well, that's a negative to counter your.
I wasn't aware of that.
Top 10 insider.
I'm glad you.
I read it.
Threw that out there. It might inform
really nice.
My son's fantasy decision. He was
what's his record now?
What is he? Was he?
He's up to 3-7. Okay. He was at 0-6, so he's rallying.
You did let him down initially, but okay.
I mean, yeah.
But it's good the value of losing.
He's very, he also refuses. I guess I've let him down because he refuses to drop Geno Smith during a bye week, even though if he doesn't do that, he'll have an empty spot on his roster. I was like, that's not worth it. You just have to take Mike Evans out if he's off this week and drop Geno.
He's very
like,
loyal.
No, he's like, I'm keeping him, and I'm just going to take a 0. I'm going to try to convince him otherwise, but I'm not going to convince myself out of this lock.
Does he know that you built Roto-World brick by brick?
No.
Is he aware of that?
He's not aware. He's not aware.
Kenny Pickett. I'm going to give your son a call.
Show me something, Kenny Pickett. I'm convinced the Steelers would have a better chance to win with Mitch Trubisky. I just haven't seen it from Kenny Pickett yet. It happens. It's a rookie quarterback, but I think
it's fine. Like, I mean, I don't know what their plan is. Like, they're not going to the playoffs. Like, maybe you just give him as
I'm
much
not killing
work
him.
as
I mean,
you can, but
he's no worse. He's certainly as good or better than some of the rookies we're doing last year. It's what happens, but he's not helping them win.
No, and it wasn't like he came into the league as a slam dunk prospect to start with, Kenny Pickett.
He's older than Justin Fields. Like, he's a year older.
So they hit the bye. It was good to see Cincinnati obviously get healthy and beat up on the Panthers before they hit their bye. I know Jamar Chase is still out of the mix. The last time they played a defense that was competitive, Cleveland shut them down on Halloween night. But I think you guys are in good hands on this lock. Unless T.J. Watt, who was active but didn't make much of a box score presence.
He made a big difference in that game.
But
though.
he was very
really
active, and I think the danger you're in here is that Cincinnati offensive line that's been up and down this year gets housed and gets a clown suit put on it, and T.J. Watt changes the game. But
I think these AFC North games, that's what happened.
At Heinz Field, you'd be in trouble, but at Acrisure Stadium,
it's a little bit different.
You're in good
Listen
shape.
to this thing about Burrow. Burrow against the AFC North this season, 5 touchdowns, 6 picks. Against every other team, 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now, I know a bunch that came against Pittsburgh, but that's who they're playing.
I know. They were so good in the division last year, including a couple romps over the Steelers. But that week 1 kind of set the tone that they just played bad in the division.
So the Patriots are typically in very good hands when Bill Belichick is coaching against the New York Jets, a team that he has historically owned. We had Mark Sanchez on the show on Tuesday, and he, of course, we discussed a little bit the last time the Jets beat the Patriots in New England. And believe it or not,
wait, that was the last time?
Yeah, Gravedigger, how old were you in January 2011?
He was 4 years old.
No, I was 19 years old.
So you were literally, our producer was a teenager the last time the Jets beat the Patriots in New England.
What?
In the playoffs, since the last time they beat them in the regular season, Greggy, it was the Brett Favre year.
I was at that game.
2009.
You were, and you saw the Jets win in overtime against Matt Castle and the Patriots. Brady was out with the ACL. Randy Moss had a at-the-clock touchdown catch to force overtime. Great game Thursday night. I called my dad from Big Wangs in Hollywood, and I said, Dad, this is it. This is the year with Brett Favre. Next week he tears his arm, like a bicep injury, and the team went down the drain. Doesn't matter. We spin forward. The Patriots are no longer the big bad Patriots to anybody else but the Jets, and I think that is very important to keep in mind here with this matchup, because I think the Jets on paper and what we've seen this year are the better team, but I do absolutely think that New England lives in the Jets' heads. We saw it 2 weeks ago at the Meadowlands when, of course, Zach Wilson, who's even younger than Justin Graver, the last time the Jets won in the playoffs, he's not aware of the ghosts as much, but at the same time, he's had 2 games against the Pats, and they've been nightmare experiences. So he's in the club with Sam Darnold and all the other Jets quarterbacks of the past, 20 years. Can the Jets come out, not kill themselves? And we talked about Patrick Mahomes and how what's made him even better this year is his ability to make plays with his legs and just have incredible instincts of when to hold him and when to fold him and get out of that pocket. Zach Wilson, one thing that really jumped out to me in that Buffalo game was instead of the pirouettes, spinning away, running away in a panic, throwing the ball up for grabs, sometimes out of bounds, sometimes not, he used his really underrated athleticism, got out of the pocket, and made plays. He needs to do more of that and less overthinking things inside that pocket. I think that's a big part of this game.
It was great, at least, that we all went into that game saying this is exactly what needs to happen with Zach Wilson. And he accomplished it. There was some element of more control, less distress, less chaos, and some growth. And I look across the field and think, Mac Jones is a big problem for New England, too.
It's a big game for him. Big game.
Mac Jones, it's like there's been a body switch to some degree. I just don't see the guy from especially early last season. And it's their offense, which outside of Ramondre Stevenson, what are they right now? I mean, they just seem to me like this is a space where the Jets, if their defense continues to do what it's been doing, there is no reason they couldn't knock out the Patriots. I was talking to our friend Judy Batista down in the makeup room, and she said, it's so true. He said, none of the players care about this Patriots business. The coaching staff essentially wasn't around for any of that.
They care, though, the coaches.
But it's so many other people. There's so many other people in that building, though, who aren't the players or coaches, where this Patriots thing is still alive.
And there's a media. And I don't blame the media, but that's what they focus on when they talk to the players and the coaches, and it perpetuates around the organization.
Well, and Robert Saleh's 0-3.
Right.
And Zach Wilson's 0-3.
Right.
It's alive, and that's not the 2 great Patriots teams. They got all worked up, and they really talked up that, we're mad that they put 45 on us last year. It was like, that was the Mac Jones Patriots that put 45 on them, and that anger didn't help them. None of the pregame narratives helped them. What hurt them was that Bill Belichick came up with a game plan to stymie Zach Wilson into total submission.
Also, a bogus roughing the passer call that helped out a touchdown that would have made it 17.
Wasn't bogus, but it had nothing to do with the play.
It's fine, though.
Absolutely changed it. Zach Wilson got rid of the ball so quickly against Buffalo. He was so disciplined. His time to throw was like a second less than it was the rest of the season. If he does that, then they're fine because he won't make big mistakes. He'll use his legs. I think the running game should be okay. I don't know what to think about this Patriots defense. They're number 1 in the league in EPA per play right now.
Wow.
But if you look at the opponents that they've played and in the games what they've done is truly dominate some erratic offenses, dominate in a way teams don't in 2022 anymore.
9 sacks versus
the
Colts.
Like the Browns, who are good offense, but the Colts and the Jets and the Lions and some of these games, some of them are okay offenses where they just win. I kind of can't see them doing that again. They are a good run defense. You're going to need better Mac Jones. And for me, Belichick sees football as a problem to be solved. And he just had the bye week. Maybe this is why I always think teams are going to come out of their bye week and really fix some things, and it never happens because I've been a Patriots fan my whole life, and Belichick, I think, really does use that bye week to address things. And so how are you going to solve Mac Jones? Because I don't know it right now. These are 2 of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league right now, if you just look at how they've played. And I'm shocked that Mac Jones is one of them. He's not going through his reads. He's making panic decisions. He's just throwing balls up for grabs. Their offense seems to be they're trying to be a vertical offense. He's not accurate, which boggles my mind. It doesn't seem like he suits him. So
it doesn't seem like a confident quarterback. Right
well,
now.
I think they've taken his confidence away. He's been mismanaged, which is a weird thing inside New England's
So that gets to what I'm saying is what do they come out with this week? Because they have to recognize what they were doing wasn't working. What will they do? What will they do on the offensive line, which, oh, by the way, they've benched their first-round pick, Cole Strange, in back-to-back weeks. They have a rotating group of right tackles who either get benched or hurt. Now they're probably back to Isaiah Wynn, who they had benched, but because Marcus Cannon got hurt, their offensive line hasn't been great either. And that's trouble against the Jets. I picked the Jets to win this game online.
Dan, I have a terrible
mush.
I have a terrible Jets stat for you.
I'm not. I never pick against the Patriots. I'm like.
Yes. What is the terrible stat you have for me, Mark?
The only quarterback with 3+.
It's Christmas early from Mark to Dan.
No. I've been a Jets supporter this whole season, and I'm rooting for you. I just think this is the ghost you can slay right here, though. The only quarterback with 3+ starts and a lower passer rating versus Bill Belichick on earth is Sam Darnold.
I don't care.
That's what you have to not care about. They've got to not care. You've got to slay those ghosts.
I don't care. The ghosts exist for people like me and people like the media. The Jets are the better team. They need to win this game. The Patriots can win by running the ball. I know your offensive line is suspect, but the Jets are without Sheldon Rankins, who has a dislocated elbow. He's an important part. They're a little thin in terms of stopping the run, and he was one of their best run stuffers. I think Belichick's going to try to protect Mac Jones and hope they can get the run game going. That would be
yes.
And I wonder if, because Bailey Zappi was not very good the last time we saw him, I wonder if that will calm down the natives up there in Foxborough, or if we're going to see more garbage like booing Mac Jones after a 3-and-out in the first quarter and cut to some Yahoo in the crowd that spent $200 on a Bailey Zappi jersey. Because he thinks he gets the Tom Brady every time a backup is unheralded and takes the field. It's not how it works. Welcome to Around the NFL, presented by Barefoot Wines. Mark, the draft comes back to you.
All right. I just take games I like, and I think this is interesting. The Eagles at the Colts. What happened last week with the Colts?
The Colts are the team of Sestiel.
They are. It is a fascinating matchup to me because was that a mirage against a very bad, poorly coached Raiders team?
Yes.
This will be an acid test, no doubt about it. Well, you say yes, but here's what changed for them that Frank Reich didn't have was he didn't have Matt Ryan playing his best game of the season or one of them, and he didn't have Jonathan Taylor suddenly becoming Jonathan Taylor. And the one thing you can do on the Eagles is you can run. I've been asking week after week, what's their weakness? What's their weakness, the Eagles? They're not totally perfect. You can run on them, and I think that right now, when you don't have Jordan Davis in there, or their defensive coordinator said he is essentially the pivot point that our whole run defense and what we want to do centers around, you don't have him. You went and signed Linval Joseph. We'll see what version of Linval Joseph you get, because I'm just saying if you want to be the Colts and you want to just be what you are, bread and butter.
Linval Joseph slander here from the Sestag.
I just don't know. I mean, like he was available, so if he was a premier player at this point, he wouldn't be.
You know what? I hear what you're saying.
Is it not interesting? This is an interesting team now, the Colts.
To me, not
I know.
really. They were interesting last week to me because of all the hoopla and the circus around them.
We never meet in the middle on this.
I know, it's okay. But Matt Ryan, for instance, like he has these games in him still, but Matt Ryan more often than not at this stage of his career, I think is going to just mix in stinkers, especially up against a big pass rush, which the Eagles can bring. I don't like the Jonathan Taylor thing. To me, is more interesting. But we've been talking all season about how bad their offensive line is, and now is it just magically fixed because Jeff Saturday played center in the 2000s? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I think it's a better chance that was the 1 week post-firing bump that many teams get. Also, us against the world. Everyone thinks we're a joke.
And a Raiders team that can't rush the passer.
The Raiders are an absolute disaster right now. And it was just like everything aligned for them to have a nice week. Now, that said, I get why they're the team of STL. Because you like things.
I think it would be Sestiel versus STL, but
Sestiel.
Yeah.
Okay. Sestiel. Developing news.
Ooh.
All right. Ian Rappaport with the report.
Rap sheet.
Rap sheet, they call him. And the report is what?
Oh.
Ndamukong Suh has signed with the Eagles.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. That's exactly what they need.
Ndamukong Suh has signed with the Eagles.
Linval Joseph and Suh and Robert Quinn.
That is very interesting.
That's wild. Suh,
I love it.
Now,
the Eagles are so funny, man. They just they do all the things that all the fans want their team to do.
That's exactly right.
So Jonathan Gannon has been quoted saying essentially my defense doesn't work without a nose tackle. They already
Jordan Davis, that's what we
are
just
sort
talked
of
about.
built that they invite you to run and they're willing to give up some runs in exchange for being a better pass defense. And then when they lost Davis, it just went crazy. I don't know if that's what Sue's role is going to be or not, him and Joseph combined. But Sue is the best defensive player on the field. I always remember rewatching that Bucs-Rams playoff game. And I was just like, man, Ndamukong Suh, what a weird career. He was 34 years old, and he was the best defensive player on the field for the Bucs in that game. And I heard reports he wanted $8 or $9 million this year, or he wasn't going to play. And so no one gave it to him.
Him and his buddy Lee Iacocca were just like chopping it up. It's like, you don't go back unless they pay you top dollar.
But now it's like,
Lee.
if you're Ndamukong Suh,
new car. It was like on the car line. Go ahead. It's not even Lee Iacocca, I know. Okay,
it's
go ahead.
Warren
not part of
Buffett.
the fact. It's not part
Lee
of the fact.
Iacocca's been dead. Unfortunately, rest in peace. He could add something.
That's nice.
And
of
if
you,
you're
Greg.
Sue, I think that you're picking a Super Bowl contender. I'm just saying. I'm
updating
for the factual
you for bridging
record.
that gap from the humanistic
We had
standpoint.
no respect for the legacy left behind by Lee Iacocca, so Greg had to come in off the top rope with an RIP. Anyway, I think it's he's a depth piece at this point, but I like it as a pivot point.
How many
to talk
people
about the
listening
Eagles.
know who Lee Iacocca is? It's got to be
more than you probably
15%.
realize.
No, we have a young listenership. We have an international listenership. I don't think people are reading his.
They could be into history, Greg, the history of the automotive industry.
Right.
You don't know for certain that's not true.
I mean, come on now. Our team of around the NFL is the Lions from the Motor City.
That's probably plugged people back into that aspect of
I
society.
go to the Motor, the bar there.
We went to the garage.
The garage.
I don't think they have the same autobiography as Iacocca, an autobiography, which my dad had. I remember.
My dad had that on our.
And
in our
this
house.
is his pose on the cover of the book.
He did it. Hands over the head.
It was very 1980s.
Lido Anthony Lee Iacocca, who passed away in 2019, was an American automobile executive, best known for the development of the Ford Mustang, my dad's first car.
Yeah, I tend to think this won't be making it to NFL Network.
Goes to you, Gregg Rosenthal.
All right, I'm going to pick a game that I'm surprised Marc Sessler didn't take here.
Well, he had to get that Pittsburgh Steelers game and pick two. So.
Well, I had to not get the Broncos game. I've already explained that process to you.
It's Justin Fields Sunday with 60% G. I love watching this guy live. How can you not? And I think it's going to be a fun game, Bears and Falcons on Sunday, because both of these defenses stink. They're kind of mirror images of each other right now, these two teams. Two run-heavy offenses that go 200-plus yards a week, and two defenses that I don't trust whatsoever. And you feel like the Bears are better at this style of play? I know they keep losing right now. The reason I give the Falcons a chance, certainly in this game, I mean, the Bears are not some great team. Since they've traded Robert Quinn, I went and checked. EPA per play defensively, 1 through 8. 15th. Bears were just like, they're fine. Since then, dead last, 32nd. So the Falcons should also get theirs, and it should be a lot of offense.
They should. And I think with the Bears, it's important to realize that this team with Justin Fields is just a lot different now. Mm-hmm. And I think that what you want to watch here in the...
Hey, Dad!
Okay. Who's that?
It's me, God!
Oh, wow. That's God's voice? That's how God's sound.
Wow, this is crazy. Hey, God.
So listen, I noticed you were really enjoying the play of undrafted Bears linebacker Jack Sanborn during your Monday tape dogging sesh for Power Rankings.
Whoa, yeah, actually. I really, you really are omnipotent, aren't you, God?
Yes, seriously. I'm always watching. You need to know that.
Anyway, yes, I do love me some Sanborn. He's a high motor grinder, local boy made good, who's in the middle of everything.
I know, bro. I literally created him. So anyway, he's your guy now.
Whoa, my God. I got to say, that's unexpected. But what about, the standard processing?
Waived.
Oh, please. Wow, this is nuts. Thank you, God. Before you go, I feel like I'll kick myself forever if I don't ask. Not just for me, on behalf of the guys in the studio and everybody. What's it all for? I mean, everything. Life.
Save it for the Theology Podcast, Tugboat.
Okay. Well, even God. All right. Sorry. Anything else?
Tell Marc Sessler, that is.
Uh-oh.
I see him too. And man, that guy is a freak. I mean a freak-a-leak. I mean, what? Right, Greg? All right.
Oh, boy.
Bye. Cut out.
Wow. Whoa. You know, sometimes like God, it feels like God walks into the studio and then it actually happened.
I'm left feeling vulnerable.
He's not wrong. He is a freak-a-leak.
I didn't realize that the way that God works is that He's able to observe all things. I didn't know that was the case.
Thought, that's what they always
told
said,
that,
and
but
then now we know.
I thought he might jump in with a Tyler Algier, your guy update for Marc, but that's still going through processing.
Well, I think the lead, it's buried a little bit, but Jack Sanborn, the undrafted linebacker, is my guy. He's on my list.
Okay.
Which is crazy that he would get involved with that, but it is what it is.
And I mean, apparently God does not care about me in that process, or I don't know what I
think he might be.
I'm left
there's
with
so much going on with you. I think that he's just distracted and he hasn't been able to get to the Algier situation.
I'm left with immense concern.
Anyway, let's go on with the analysis of the game.
Do we have to?
Not really.
I have one sandwich prop item here. I did before the season say that we would witness the fastest game of the year. This one on paper sets up where if both teams they ran the ball combined like 82 times, maybe you get there, you get close. It's just really hard to do it because we've seen some, Greg, on Sundays when we're monitoring some of these outlier strange games, and they're not getting close enough, even the fast ones.
Yeah, the NFL games, by the way, have gotten way faster this year. Is this on your radar, Dan? The time is faster than any year since 1987.
But why?
Well,
I think the style of play
I think running
mostly,
is way up. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
long drives.
Right.
He's like the way
scoring's down.
But Roger Goodell and the league office also are taking some credit, as they should, with much less replay time. They've really cut down on that. So a couple little things. Cole Kmet might not play in this game. AJ Terrell might be back, and
Khalil Herbert on injury reserve.
Make a play. Yeah, that's a good point.
Don't
They're
hold your
not
breath.
as deep. Make a play, Mariota, off script with your arm. It just never happens. And when you have
can't shoot straight.
When you have a running quarterback, which he ultimately is, and he's good at running, and he's part of their great running game. You need to be able to come up with plays on your own sometimes, like play make. And he doesn't make any plays. And the previous, I forget who the crew was. It was maybe Vilma last week. Him and Pitts has to be at fault somewhat. Because they are never on the same page. Sometimes Mariota just misses him, but about 3 times a game, it's just like one of them thinks the other is going to do something else.
Their lack of chemistry is like almost shocking. But I have a solution
to so many throws on Pitts, though.
It's terrible.
It's crazy.
I have a solution for you. How about make a play, Desmond Ridder? When do the Falcons at some point decide?
I'll tell you exactly what one. They're going to stick with him until the season's over at week 13, and then at week 14 they'll hit the bye. And then he'll starting week 15.
I just wonder what it says about Desmond Ridder or Arthur Smith.
I don't think it says anything.
I think it's Arthur Smith.
Isn't he a 3rd-round pick?
Yeah.
In a quarterback class?
Why not try him out?
Okay, I think if he loses this game, Ridder starts next week. And 2 of the reasons I think that is Arthur Smith was indignant this week. He's like, what situation? There's no situation. I'm Super Mario. All right, a little too much there.
I kind of love Arthur
And then more importantly, Jeff Schultz for The Athletic, who is as plugged in as any columnist, has been there a long time, said he thought that it's like getting to be game to game, that it's going to be Ridder soon if Mario does better. I just said I meant in the country, he's in there. Yeah, you're right, Orlando Ledbetter, but he's more of a beat guy. I don't think he can say, he can't opine as much.
Schultz bomb.
He gives you the facts.
Schultz just comes in and drops
I don't have access to the Journal-Constitution anymore.
Oh.
Which I totally respect.
Why
don't
you
make money.
Support your local news
not
institutions?
My local. It's not.
Your national.
It's literally across the country.
Support journalism. I have a paid subscription to every newspaper in the country.
You absolutely do
and
not.
And there's no way for you to check. You would never know.
All you are surrounded by are paywalls.
I support the Athletic, and that kind of gets it all done in one place.
Do you think we could expense that?
I think I've thought of that. We could have, but we
Let's
never
not
have.
pay
Among
for
other things.
anything.
Among other things.
Let's get on the teat. All right, before we snake, let's take a break.
I don't think God would like that.
Thank you, God, by the way, and I will be a good boy.
Lions and Giants. That's actually my primary game, if you care, in the morning. I'm excited about this.
Who would care?
Nobody except me, but just letting you know.
It's a good game, though. I like it. It's a good pick.
Let's be real. Dan has supported the Lions incredibly.
Thank you.
He believes in them with his heart.
Thank you.
Mark, not so much.
No.
But on Sundays, the Lions, just because of the way the drafts have fallen, have become the team of THAL. Because you guys have almost not watched the Lions all season, because I think I've had them almost every week, and I'm excited for them this week because I think they're going to go win this game in New York. This is a great litmus test of this.
Such a weird setup. It's like I've been completely supportive of the team. I did the Hard Knocks podcast. I fought with you to try to get Sessler on the straight and narrow.
That's why I wanted to point that out.
And then you put a dagger in the middle of my back.
It wasn't a dagger. And then
you.
I even just tried to point out, I think it's just random, but I just can't. I just have the Lions every week.
Okay.
And all their games are kind of the same. They're not quite as compelling, actually, as a football operation. As I think just because they're so consistent. Like, we know who Jared Goff is. DeAndre Swift can't figure out how to play more than 10 snaps a week because he's not healthy enough, I guess. And Amon-Ra St. Brown's getting open again. The offensive line, I think, can protect Goff and move the ball on the ground in this game. The big question whenever Goff plays like a heavy blitz team is that he struggles with pressure, and so that's the big matchup there. But on paper, I like this Lions offensive line being tough enough, and I just feel like the Giants have to have a passing game at some point, and I know they've coached around it, and Daniel Jones has done well enough for when he's given the opportunity, but this is a game where you should be able to light up the Lions defense, and I just think it's a rare team that won't light up the Lions defense.
Yeah, it's like their strengths don't totally work with Detroit's, outside of the fact that the Lions have the 31st run defense in the league. That said, I think that's really pretty heavily weighed on earlier in the year. They were solid against the Packers, against their run. It's solid against the Dolphins on the run. They were destroyed by the Bears, but everyone's getting destroyed by the Bears. That had a lot to do with Justin Fields. They also had 3 takeaways against the Packers in that tight game. They had the pick 6 against the Bears in a game they lost by 1 point. They're going to need to find a way to get, I think, a turnover or 2 in this. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown an interception since week 3. The Giants have been clean.
Wow.
They have been clean, and I do think this is it's in New York. You've got Saquon Barkley playing out of his mind, and you just unleash him against Detroit. I do think it's going to be really tight, but I don't know why. I'm hearing this all over the place that the Giants, this is the week the Giants go down. I love Wink Martindale making life hell for Jared Goff.
They're only 3-point favorites. They're a 7-2 team against a 3-6
People
team
just do not want to believe in the Giants, and I kind of get it.
Not only Lions are 3-6, their win on the road last week was their first in 2 years under Dan Campbell. So this is a bad road team. The Lions don't travel well. They're very up and down. Jared Goff, I don't know what the weather is going to be in northern New Jersey this weekend, but it's probably going to be cold
here. Yeah.
So keep an eye on that. I think this does set up well for the Giants. And, you know, if anybody that's been listening to the show knows I've always been, you know, kinder to the Giants and some other people, Greg and Wes certainly. But, Mark, you've kind of taken the baton because, I don't – and I was getting a lot of fire in my East Coast text thread for having the Giants at 13 in the power rankings, because there is a part of me that's just like, I have a lot of respect for what they've done to get to this point, but do I have to buy in that they're actually a good team? And then just out of curiosity, I do not use Football Outsider as a guide when I do the power rankings, but sometimes, like after the fact, I'll check it. Giants are ranked 19th in the league in team DVOA, and that to me tells the story also of a team that is well coached. They win close games. They've had a cush schedule. And this, again, sets up well for the Giants to get to 8-2. So I don't know what to make of them, because they're going to go to the playoffs and they're going to win 11, maybe even 12 games most likely. But I've yet to buy in. I think a big part with Daniel Jones. Like Daniel Jones, what he's doing is what the Jets wish Zach Wilson was doing, which is he makes occasional plays. Good. He doesn't turn it over, and he leans on other aspects of the team that are stronger. You got to credit him for that. Can the Lions put The Giants in a situation where Daniel Jones needs to make plays, I don't know about that. I don't think this is a matchup that sets up well for Detroit.
I think if the Giants are a pet team of mine, it's more just the story around them. And I think Brian Daboll, I kind of love Brian Daboll, and I think the team does, and they're enjoyable. But they're flawed, and I think it's a great opening year for Brian Daboll. And I could see them having a record next season if they don't have major new elements to the team and probably a new quarterback. The record won't be this. It's like they're not the record, but they're also like better than people think on defense. I think they create more problems than people think on defense. They don't turn the ball over. They can run the ball really well, and they've been money in the fourth quarter.
I think they're a tough team to prepare for, and all these, as the coaches say, it's like a 1-week season, and I think Daboll, the combination of Daboll and Martindale are very good at game planning week to week and changing what they're going to do, and that's a huge battle and a huge asset in a league without a lot of separation. But they're like number 2 and 3 receivers last week were Isaiah Hodgins and Tanner Hudson.
Henry Hodgson.
Yeah.
I don't know. We are too hard. I am too hard on the Giants. I shouldn't say we. I am sometimes.
And they were also
let's
stuck
give them
with
some flowers, which is just Dexter Lawrence is a Pro Bowler this year. Dave Gettleman got one of those hog mollies right. Took a few years, but he's playing outstanding. Andrew Thomas is a Pro Bowl left tackle. They hit on that pick too. Mm-hmm. And one example of a good coaching staff I like to look for, do they take a player that other coaching staffs had no use for and make them really valuable? Remember Jalen Smith? Cowboys couldn't use him last year, and the Giants, with a different coaching staff, didn't know what to do with him last year. He was a lost player, and he's come in for this Giants team and is pretty good.
Well, I would flip it around and say they also apparently couldn't do anything with Kadarius Toney.
Well, that also speaks to we'll see what happens.
I think.
That's why it seem personal, but also
but Tony's story's not written in Kansas City.
It
it's
isn't,
not like
but they
know for sure.
On paper before last season, you would have thought Kenny Golladay would be their star wideout. He's been a disaster. He had one of the worst drops of the league.
I don't think there's any saving him. Yeah, I don't think there's any saving him. He has 22 yards this year.
Did you know Saquon Barkley has 931 rushing yards?
He's on pace for like 1,700 yards.
Week 11, he's on pace for 1,758. He had 35 carries out of the bye last week. I would imagine, I'd be very surprised unless this game gets out of hand and they can rest him. If he gets 30 more touches in this game, keep an eye on it. It's actually pretty crazy. I looked it up earlier this week, and he's up to 198 carries in 9 games after 181 carries in 2021 and 2020 combined. So you hope he doesn't wear down. You certainly hope he doesn't get injured, because you take Barkley out of this mix, and it could be Crater City for the Giants.
They got to use him more as a receiver. It's a little weird just how he hasn't really leaned into that.
All right, there you go. So, Mark, it is now back to you.
All right. God knows that I like chaos.
Oh, God knows everything.
Darkness.
Yes.
Intrigue of that nature. Rams Saints. It could It is ugly. It is an ugly situation. I want us to see how Sean McVay.
No, I know, but you don't love the Saints.
You can still watch this.
No,
if you want.
not anymore.
You can still watch it out of the corner.
I think we will have someone with very large muscles that likes to lift weights watch this one.
He'll also be watching this. I hate this the Rams are just, it's like kind of impressive to watch how messy things are. Alaric Jackson, their left tackle, was diagnosed with blood clots. He is out for the rest of the season. That's very serious. Chandler Brewer, the right guard, has a grade 3 MCL. He's out for like 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, they have had 10 different line combinations.
They're on third stringers almost everywhere.
Right, and even in week 1, when that wasn't the case, and across the board, they were a disaster. It's been an unfixable issue, and we've talked about it every week on this thing. While the rest of the league is embracing the ground game against smaller defensive players and succeeding, the Rams cannot run the ball. They just lost Cooper Kupp, who accounted for 37.8% of their receiving yards. Matthew Stafford's passer rating to anyone not named Cooper Kupp this would be fine in 1972. In 2022, it's a disaster. It's 77.2 is his passer rating to anyone not named Cooper Kupp. How on earth does someone...
I thought it'd be worse, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, but 77.2 is awful in this day and age.
And yet they could win this game.
They're playing another disaster.
This is the Bad Vibes Bowl of the week. There's a couple, but this is the worst.
This is as bad as it gets.
This is the worst vibes.
Yeah.
I think the Saints
Las Vegas, Denver's raising its hand, but yeah.
Right. Those would be the two, but Jameis Winston this week and what's gone on with him, I think speaks to something larger going on with the Saints. He had an interview with Mike Triplett, who now works for Nick Underhill's site. Check it out. It's good stuff. I think New Orleans football.
Not to be confused with Jeff Triplett, the longtime NFL
long
official.
time not the
same person.
Beat guy. And Jameis talked to him, and he spoke about how he's not really fully healthy, that he hasn't been fully practicing. And so the fact that he hasn't been listed on the injury report over the last month, okay, you just told on yourself there. I wouldn't be surprised if the league is
discipline incoming.
Checking into that. He also said that one of the reasons he struggled so much to recover from the back injury is that they put him on a plane to London with broken backs and problems, and that really exacerbated it.
Well, he wasn't sitting in the seats that we were sitting in, apparently.
Well, I think
maybe if he was doing some knee highs, he would have been all right.
I don't think as nice as you can lie down. You were saying
those were nice seats.
Yeah, I don't know if that would solve everything of being in a plane for 10 hours. It sure sounds like to me when Dennis Allen spoke, and I listened to him because I'm just like, what's going on with Dennis Allen? When he spoke this week, he almost kind of hinted that Jameis isn't ready to start, and that maybe they were ready to go back to Jameis, and then he spoke about it with both quarterbacks, and he kind of hinted on Monday that he was going to go to Jameis, but on Wednesday it's back to Dalton, and you don't want to speculate too much, but it wouldn't be surprising if Jameis was like, nah, I'm good.
I think you're
right.
right.
It's what kind of situation? It's just – and Marshawn Lattimore, remember Marshawn Lattimore?
Yeah, great.
What happened to him?
Not so great.
They never put any guys on injured reserve. They just have guys that are out, and they're out for day-to-day, and then they're out for 8 weeks. Just something.
It's like Dennis Allen and Brandon Staley just get on the phone together. It's like, I got a great idea to mess up my guys this week with their injury stuff. Listen to this. Just conspire.
He's like,
it's an awesome idea.
Can I borrow that?
So don't put him on IR? Yeah, he's really hurt, and he's not anywhere close, and we could free up roster space and give that guy. No. Keep him in the mix. Get him on a plane. Send him to Europe. Yeah, very good.
Keenan Allen him.
It's like two bad guys. They're probably nice. Okay, I will grab because, Mark, you know what? Vegas at Denver, it's not too bad for me. I like the drama. I don't like it, but, there is, again, some car crash theater here. The Raiders obviously having a dreadful season, and that was, let's face it, given everything around the team, a humiliating loss to the Colts after the Colts were presented to the outside world as the worst organization in the NFL with a zero amount of, big picture view on how to run a football team. Then they go to your building and you're charging the fans like $200 a ticket, and then they just beat you. That can't happen. So then Mark Davis comes out. He defends the team. He says we're playing the long game here. And then you have Derek Carr and others coming out in the media and saying, hey, we really needed that. That's going to help in the locker room, which I wondered about early in the week if that would have a positive effect, them not feeling like the walls were totally caving in with an owner about to fire everybody. But at the end of the day, they're still a mess. They go to Denver now to face a Broncos defense that is good, still good, even after they moved Bradley Chubb. You saw that again as they shut down Derrick Henry. So Josh Jacobs, good luck here in this game. That said, Russell Wilson, as we talked about a little bit on Sunday and as we've been talking about all season, is just kind of a mess. And this could be a big Max Crosby game where he makes several huge plays. I just think Russell Wilson is not going to fix this offense. He's, in fact, perhaps the problem with this offense. And you're going to see a low-scoring game. And I think the Raiders actually win this game. I feel like something like 20-13, and you get a happy Derek Carr on the podium talking about what a relief it is afterwards.
I mean, Russell Wilson's sack rate right now is 28.7 when he's under pressure. That is by far over the last
What's
half
even
decade.
second? The last half decade.
For his last half decade. It speaks to the fact that he just looks lost out there. And Tyler Columbus, a former Bronco, who said that he's been speaking with people inside the organization. This is a crazy thing. That Russell Wilson has been losing his mind out there, he said in a quote. He's using audibles from the Seahawks. The guys don't know the audibles. He's using code words that guys don't know. That's stunning. I mean, it just speaks to the fact that, you would have thought, okay, would Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson duo combination experiment struggle for the first month, maybe six weeks? We saw that, and you think, are they going to grow their way out of it? They're not, because the coach and the quarterback are not up to speed. And I don't know what the future is for Russell at this point. What's the future?
Yeah, once a game he makes a big play, it feels like now, where it's like a 70-yard touchdown of some kind, and then you're like, okay, they're going to build on that. And then 3 quarters later, they have like 2 first downs. They don't build on anything. This is the Claybon team. There is no momentum around the Denver Broncos and what they do on offense. They make a couple of big plays a game, and it is surrounded by slop. It's a bad situation. I think about what the financial commitment is to Wilson and what they're going to have to think, what the moves they're going to make, Greg, in the offseason. We don't need to get there yet. It's still only
we will be talking
mid-November,
about it,
but that will be a major supply. Like, what does new ownership do knowing they're kind of in deep with a guy that maybe can't play anymore?
I don't think they have any choice. They also won't have their draft pick. I mean, right now that would be, I think, the number 3 pick.
Oh.
Or 4. I could be wrong. Maybe that was the Raiders that were that high. Raiders do have their pick. Did not give up their own pick for Davante Adams. So that's good. Davante Adams has actually come in as advertised, by the way. He has almost the exact same numbers as he did with the Packers at this point a year ago.
He's so good.
But
they
don't have depth on their offense. They're going to struggle. These 2 teams have played before. It was the week we were in London, and I remember that was Russell Wilson's best game. He played pretty well against the Raiders, like everyone does. It was definitely the Raiders' best game offensively. They put up 30. They were the only team that had a great day against Denver. Josh Jacobs had a nice day. I don't know if that has any meaning. The teams are missing a lot more players than they were back then.
Feels like 4 decades ago.
Right. The weather will be very different. The Broncos are getting back Baron Browning and Justin Simmons on defense, potentially. 2 really good players who were gone last week. But on offense, they're thin like the Raiders too. So I know we don't have to spend too much time. But their second and third receivers last week, who was it? It was Justin Virgil, who I was not familiar with previously.
He had the long touchdown.
And
Jalen Virgil.
Jalen Virgil. And then Kendall Hinton, our old friend who started that game at quarterback, is now like a starting receiver for them. He had always been kind of their 5th receiver. So they're hurting.
Even in a disastrous
Hey, I'm
game,
Russell Wilson, and I throw a sexy deep ball.
Even for a sad Raiders season, Davante Adams makes multiple plays every week. You're like, man, he's so much different. The way, not just his speed, but his wiggle and his getting away from would-be tacklers and turning a 7-yard gain into a 17-yard gain. He's exactly what you're saying, as good as advertised. So he's just kind of – it's weird to watch and a little bit frustrating to see another great prime season of his be wasted while the Packers and Aaron Rodgers desperately need him. It just, for me, there's like some type of like cognitive disconnect. Like, why isn't he back there in the Pack? I'm sure Packer
football.
fans
You're
get
loyal to football too. I think you're thinking about football.
I am.
He wanted to play with his best friend.
Well, he got it.
It doesn't always work out.
All right.
I think he'd rather be there still.
Let's be quicker to finish this thing out. Gravedigger, I want you to get involved with this one. So I'm going to give you the choice of 2 games here. You ready? Gravedigger. The Commandos at Houston or the Panthers at Baltimore?
I've got Lamar Jackson on a few fantasy teams, so I'm going to choose the Baltimore one.
Of course.
No, I'm annoyed with you.
Keep some eyes on this game then, Justin?
Absolutely.
Help me with this. Why are you so mad, Mark? What about this game is interesting
I have
to you?
I have one more game assignment, and I'm going to be stuck with the other game you mentioned now. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You got the Commandos.
Thank you, Justin, I should say.
You got the Commandos. The Ravens and the Panthers. So we have Baker Mayfield starting for the Panthers. We'll see if he finishes that game. And the Ravens, obviously, now. What? He stinks.
Well, I guess you're right. I don't think he's going to get – you think he'd get benched for
There's been reporting that
Sam
there's
Darnold.
people inside the Panthers org that want to see Darnold before the end of the year. I don't know why, but –
Right. There is a report out there. So I'm just saying I don't know if he's completely going down in flames again in the first half. If they think Darnold's healthy, he'll play. But I think this game is more about, again, the Ravens, who have been just, to me, kind of fun to watch. I enjoy, obviously, the way Lamar plays. And, their running game is their identity because it has to be on some level. They're missing pieces in the passing game. Mark Andrews is practicing, I believe, so that's an important
really
part.
good chance to play.
They need
Harbaugh said.
If they're going to win the Super Bowl, Mark Andrews not only has to be on the field, but he has to be healthy and making plays. But for now, especially against lesser than teams, they could absolutely just lean on Lamar, who's averaging 7.4 yards per attempt on 86 carries. But, Gus Edwards, Kenyon Drake, Justice Hill, these guys have all, when called upon, done things as well. And a lot of that goes back to the offensive line. And you look at a big-time draft hit on Tyler Linderbaum. Ronnie Stanley has stabilized things on the left side. This team is built to roll over a lot of teams, including the Panthers. That's what's going to happen here.
When you had Jordan Rodriguez to talk about the Saints-Ravens game, you guys did a great job because it was like the way that they confused New Orleans. And there's this one play where I think it showed the running game completely opening up opportunities in the passing game for Lamar Jackson, where it looked like he was going to sweep right behind like 4 or 5 giant behemoths, and the Saints are preparing to deal with Lamar Jackson.
Behemoths?
Yeah, just like
behemoths.
I say behemoths.
Behemoths.
I just say it that other way. That's how I say it. But hold on, so
that might be the British pronunciation.
Yeah, it's like I came from.
I don't know where my lexicon came from.
I came from a different
forgot
world
about
than
the
you.
England thing.
Yeah.
Rebuild with behemoths.
I mean, I'm not sure that I can truly chart it to that, but it's a
yeah,
possibility.
we'll have to let us know, listeners, if that's how it's because controversy is definitely spoken differently in England. We say controversy.
I was at the stadium with Mark and Mark's like, "Why don't we take the lift?" I was like, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" Oh, Surrey, 6 weeks. 1974.
I still say one thing that I get flagged on all the time is instead of sweatpants, tracksuit pants. That's what I was raised to say.
You grew up in Connecticut.
I was in England till I was from age 3 to almost 7, so there was a lot of developmental stuff happening there. I don't know if you know how children work.
I don't know where my lexicon came from.
We're just a bunch of sexy dads.
I was just going to mention that on that sweep, though, they're so focused on Lamar Jackson that he throws this incredible pass to Isaiah Likely, and they're finding ways to open up opportunities for him in every possible way.
They're getting healthier. I think they are a great example of what good coaching staffs do. I think they figure out their team as the season goes along, and they start focusing on strengths, and they start dialing it. You can see the improvement from their running game in terms of their offensive line as the season's gone along. You can see the improvement from their defense as the season's gone along, and they've kind of figured things out. Either their defense or offense can kind of win them a game, and there's just not that many teams like that. They're very good at changing the game plans depending on the half. They're only the 5th team in NFL history, Dan, to have a double-digit lead in each of their first 9 games.
How did they lose so many games?
Right, and so that rank puts them with some of the most dominant teams ever. And now they should have a double-digit lead in this game. They are 13-point favorites.
Destroy
Baker Mayfield will feel the revenge from Lamar going, "Oh, all those teams took you number 1 overall. Oh, you wouldn't have liked me in Cleveland." That's not really a narrative, but no one was thinking about him, but they should have.
All right, the Commanders just coming off the biggest win that they've had in a long time.
I like that Taylor Heineke.
And they're against the worst team in the league. But one Commandos fan did tweet at me, "Hey, Dan, I know you might think that you should lock up the Commanders this week.
No.
Do not do it. Do not Yes, Justin.
Somebody did.
Who?
Oh, no.
Who?
Heroes, we took another L last week.
Oh, no, Nick.
We're not doing so hot. I guess I should say I'm not doing so well. The rest of the brothers won't ever give me their picks before I need to do this recording, so I just make something up on the fly now. I reached out to Larry because he's 8-1 in the sub standings. He waited 3 days, but he finally got back to me and gave me 3 picks. So I guess we're going to go down to Houston and watch 2 boring teams that have terrible quarterbacks that are going nowhere.
Hey, Commanders are in the mix.
It is a little bit interesting. Close game. Commanders probably the better team on the road. Makes for a pretty lockable game for the Westlings. So what will we do? Well, we're going down to Houston, and we're going commando, baby. Lock it up.
You see, they turned out the light on Nick.
Yeah.
I put this on the brothers.
It's tough to watch.
Because I think Nick, when it was originally conceived, the idea was, it's a brothers thing. it's carrying on the legacy of that family and Chris. And then one by one, they've just left Nick out in the cold. And now Nick has buried himself with a lot of bad picks this year.
Right. So I would say it's partly on Nick.
Yeah, it's partly.
Sure, but he's reaching
4 and
out.
6.
Yeah. He's the prodigal son. He's wandered away. And what happened? We know because God literally was in the room earlier.
Yeah.
When the prodigal son came home, Mark.
Yeah.
Was he turned away by the father?
No.
Save it for the
theology The father
podcast,
accepted
please.
him. In fact, it caused a problem with the more officious, dutiful son because he's like, I've been here the whole time doing all your chores and mowing the lawn. And then this guy rolls in from who knows where, and he's just as favored as I am.
Perhaps the Wessling brothers, Nick accepted, need to bury their nose in the Bible and realize it's time to forgive Nick and come together as a family.
I don't think that would be a popular
I don't think that's going to fly too well with
Save it for the Theology Podcast, Tugboat.
All right. Sorry,
I do think that the Vikings, his Bills lock over the Vikings seemed to have taken a lot of air oxygen out of the room.
Yeah, it's not fun to see Nick so beaten down. He used to be so excited and happy each week. And
turn the light out.
Hopefully we'll get back a better version of Nick, and hopefully the Commanders come through. Although I don't feel confident. I'm kind of with your friend. This was one of the hardest games of the week.
Twitter.
Yeah, I don't think it stands for.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's not that he's
I thought it was a hard game to pick because the Texans got to win a game at some point, and this feels like a game they could win. They're in the fourth quarter every single week. The Commanders are in the fourth quarter every single week, so it's probably gonna be close.
And Ron Rivera's buying time. He doesn't want Carson Wentz to play anymore. So now he's like, take another week.
He's buying time in multiple ways. I was thinking about that. The way this season was going, he was almost certain to be a casualty, I think, if there was a change in ownership, which there's expected to be in March, because usually coaches are. He was actually in the exact same situation when he was in Carolina.
Yeah,
and he staved it off for like a year or half a year. I don't even remember if he lasted a year. But he did stave it off for that offseason. And now he's going to be in a similar situation. But if they keep winning, he's auditioning, and there's no – if they win 7 or 8, 9 games, I don't think he's going anywhere.
No. I also Heineke at least I think has had awesome chemistry with Terry McLaurin during their run together. He's turned Scary Terry, your guy, into the 8th most valuable fantasy wideout, and they have legit chemistry. They were really good on third down against the Eagles. I don't
fantasy nug.
That was
scheme. I like their scheme. Like Scott Turner, maybe it's too complicated, but there's a lot of fancy little plays. And one last little command.
Yes.
One last one.
Greg.
Curtis Samuel.
Yes.
483 yards receiving, 134 rushing. He actually is kind of doing the Deebo Samuel role and doing it very well. Every week he has about 4 or 5 really key plays where you're like, wow, Curtis Samuel's valuable. He actually has more yards in both of those categories than Deebo Samuel.
That's what they signed him to be, and his first season was ruined by injury. And
I've enjoyed it.
Did we bring up Chase Young? That he might be playing in this game after the defensive line kind of dominated and made big plays against an undefeated. Anyway,
they're 5-5, and they're in the playoff mix right now.
Maybe a win by the Commanders will help bring the brothers together.
Yeah, now we're all Commanders fans. Since we don't take Nick, seriously as a competitor anymore, now we're rooting for him.
I don't feel that way.
Where are they in the standings? They're at the bottom.
They're very far at the bottom. All right. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to everybody for watching. This show is on NFL Network every Saturday morning. Check your local listings. Remember to do one thing. As Chris Wessler is known to say, heed the call.